If you ever wanted to display two buttons next to each other on one line, you found out that there is no way to do that in the Divi builder. And honestly, I think it may be one of the future features, one of the future updates on Divi. But before that, I'm going to show you a quick and simple solution using the jQuery code. Let's get started. Now let's create our layout. I created a simple hero section with a heading and then a button below. When we want to add another button by duplicating our first button, for instance, you will find out that your button goes below. And of course, you could go to the settings of the button and you can adjust the spacing, like margin left and then negative margin top, in order to place these buttons next to each other. But that's not really a professional way, and you might have some responsive issues on mobile and so on, and we will do it more professionally using jQuery. The issue that we have has something to do with display CSS property. By default, our Divi buttons are displayed as block. Now, when something is displayed block, it means that you can only have one element on a line, as you can see in this picture. What we need to have, though, is display inline block. So we need to change the display block to display inline block so that we can have two or more elements on each line. Imagine that this line would be 1000 pixels width and your button is 100 pixels. That means that in theory, you could have 10 buttons next to each other if there is no margin on the right or on the left side. But that's only possible with inline block. It's not possible with display block, because even though this button would only have 100 pixels width and the line would be 1000 pixels width, you could only have one in each line because the display is set to be block. But we need to change that to display inline block. Now, another problem is that the Divi button module consists of two parts. The first part is the inner part, that's the blue one in this picture, and that's what you see when you build your website, and it's also what the visitor sees. Unfortunately, in the HTML structure, there is also an outer part, which is represented by the red color, and that one is set to be block, and there is no way we can do something about it in the Divi builder. Right, so of course you could say that you could go to the settings of your button, you could give it a custom class, and then you can change the display property in your style sheet to be display inline block, or you could go custom CSS and change it in here, but it only influences the inner part, the blue part, but we need to influence the outer part, which is the red part. We need to have it like that. And in order to do that, we need to use jQuery code. Before we work with the jQuery, we need to give our buttons a custom class. So open the settings of the button, go to the advanced class, CSS ID and classes, and write your own unique class. For the purpose of this tutorial, I went with inline_button, and then make sure that you give your class to both of the buttons. If you use more than two buttons, give it to all of them. Once you have that, save the page and go to Divi Advanced tab, Integration, scroll down to the body part, open the written part of my tutorial. If you are watching on YouTube, the link will be below this video, and scroll to step number 3, which contains the jQuery snippet. What the jQuery snippet does is it actually looks for every element on the website that has this particular class. In my case, that's inline_button. And then it looks for the parent element of these elements, the parent rep, and it adds class to the parent rep. So that's basically the red part that I just showed you, which is by default displayed as block. So we give that part a custom class, inline_button_wrapper. So copy this snippet, go back to theme options and paste it to the body. Save it. Then stay in Divi theme options, but go to the general tab, scroll down to custom CSS, go back to the written part of my tutorial, scroll to step number 4, which contains a CSS snippet. And as you can see, we changed the red part, the outer part of the button, to be displayed inline block. So copy the snippet and paste it here to your style sheet, save it, and then when we visit our page again, where we have the layout, as you can see, we have the two buttons next to each other. Now, this doesn't look necessarily great, so you may want to add some spacing to your second button. So I'm gonna add some little margin. As you can see, it doesn't work in the visual builder, but it works on the front end, which is the most important thing. I'm going to give 10 pixels, and then maybe let's say that these are going to be our services button, and I'm going to change the styling a little bit, not to have two buttons of the same color next to each other. And I can save that. And when I exit the Visual Builder, as you can see, I have nice buttons next to each other. Also, a super useful thing when you want to have everything centered in your layout, including the buttons, you can easily achieve that by going to the row settings. In the row settings, you choose the column settings. In our case, we only have one column. Then you go to the Advanced tab, Custom CSS, and you write text align center, and that will center everything. And when we close our Visual Builder after saving our changes, you will find now that the buttons are actually centered. Now, you may want to enable this only on mobile, because for some reason I sometimes prefer having everything centered on mobile. If you want to do that, simply go again to the column settings, custom CSS, you delete the code from desktop, you hit the mobile icon, change the mobile view, and say text align center, and that will only do the job for mobile. So when we save, and then when I look on the inspector simulating an iPhone, you can see that it is actually centered. And the great thing is that from now on, everywhere on your website, when you want to display your buttons next to each other, you just have to give them the CSS class inline_button, and it will basically work. So you don't have to paste any jQuery code anywhere. It is enough when you do it once, and then you can use this magic everywhere on your website. If you like this tutorial, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram as well, because there are more Divi tricks and tips coming soon.